Could you give us one advice to the older generation, for the younger generation? What should we do to your generation to help them go through what you have seen, or what you think we can help?
Yeah. Well, I think it's difficult by design to have the experience I had, but what I do think is important, and I was lucky to have that, is that when the older generation gives you basically, you have responsibility who's given to you, and you become accountable for that, and that can start in a very young age. So I think the important thing is to let go, and ultimately, if you want people to grow in their roles, there should be a switch of generation, and I think being able to have responsibility at a young age is good. So within a business unit, and some examples around us where people have done that and stepped down at 65 or 60-year-old to allow their children to basically take the lead are, I think, ultimately have been positive examples.
Absolutely.
Yes. Hello. You said you now have 2 businesses, cars, and also, is it venture capital?
No. We have 4 businesses, which are the car business and the capital goods business, so agriculture, construction, trucks, commercial vehicles, and that will happen in 2011, 2 entities. Then we have a big stake in SGS, which is a testing, certification, inspection company, and a business called Cushman & Wakefield, which is a US commercial real estate broker. So those are our 4 main businesses. And then we have smaller investments.
Okay, so there's some core businesses and some new businesses for you?
Yeah, those 4 would be our core positions in terms of amount of capital we have. And then we have also smaller investments.
Okay, and how do you see these investments in the future? Are they going to grow, and how do you see that?
Well, I think that on one hand, we'll have to see which of these core investments in the next decade will still be core investments, and if we won't have other ones. And at the same time, we were lucky to do, and it's been a long time we've been doing investments alongside. And so hopefully we can continue doing that. And so I don't see this construct changing. I hope we'll be successful in it.
Sophie Welch from Belgium. When you had this major challenge, the 2 family leaders who passed away and the non-family CEO who tried to profit of the situation, how did you deal? I mean, was it mostly the other non-family executives who supported you and who helped you, or was it mainly because you organized yourself with the family? I mean,
it was a combination. I think the family did not want to be pushed in the angle, so we felt that that was not going to happen. And then our advisors and executives were in agreement with us. But I think the reality is that the family did not want to be in that situation.
Being where you are now, today, what do you see as your key personal responsibility with regards to family and business? And, fast forwarding ahead, when you are 54 in 20 years, looking back, what would you like to have achieved?
Well, I mean, what I like to have achieved in the next 20 years is that my family, as I was saying, they and my children grow up well, and they're happy with their lives and solid individuals. And the business which I'm involved in is doing well, or at least we can face the challenges it has. And being happy with this, right?
Over here. Your grandfather had a remarkable experience coming into such responsibility at an early age. You replicated that experience, and before you replicated that experience, you had time with him late in his life. And I'm wondering what lessons he transmitted to you about the business and what lessons he transmitted to you about the family.
Yeah. The lessons he transmitted to me were really about not being afraid not to know things. And so always to be very open about asking questions and about understanding, trying to understand from others, not to be ashamed of not knowing. He also did give me a lot of responsibility in different ways. And so that was part of him wanting one to be responsible. And so that was very helpful. He had a very good judgment on people. That's more difficult to learn, but it was clearly something that he felt was important for one to know. On the actual business, we really spoke more about people than business, and ultimately business is done by people. So the lesson there was that one really had to know people and understand them and work with them. And on the family, it was about his way of seeing how, to some extent, there is a balance, and if there's someone who's able to have responsibility for others, to some extent, there is then a mechanism where you can help or you can provide advice, and he would spend a lot of time with his sisters and with his nephews in doing that.
Hi there. My name is Heather. I'm from the U.S. You mentioned your two beautiful boys and that you're trying to teach them not to be guilty of wealth and also to avoid complacency and entitlement. And we're working towards that same goal in our family. Probably a lot of us are too. And I'm wondering, do you have a formal program in place across the board, or is this a personal, informal thing that you're doing? And if so, how does that look like? What do you have in terms of advice for the rest of us? Thank you.
That is really a working process, and so I have no idea. I just know that that's what I strongly feel is important for us to try and avoid. Ultimately, spending time with them and trying to transmit to them the way you think helps. To some extent, if I had rebellious children, I wouldn't mind that. I'd rather that they were rebellious and we could have confrontation around that than being complacent. But it's very difficult to predict, right? So I just try and understand them, know them better, and help them out. And then try not to be guilty, complacent, and entitled.
Very good.
Hi, Christy from the States. I want to ask you, I agree with your comment about the family and business being together and not separate. So what role does your wife play or in-laws play, whether it's in the business or the family?
No roles in the business, in the sense that my wife would, she would attend if I had to do some work functions, but she has no involvement within the business. Now, at the same time, as I work very much, and when you go back home, you're always thinking about work, so I tend to share also what is in my mind with my wife. And I know some people don't, others do. I think ultimately that is something everybody has to feel comfortable with.
Olivier Mériault from France. When Giovanni Agnelli was at the head of Fiat, he was considered as somewhat the king of Italy in a way. And there has been very few comparisons of such a dynasty having such an influence within its own country. In France, we have some very strong family dynasties, but they don't have maybe the same type of influence. Now, how do you see it now? Do you see that, what is the social responsibility of the Agnelli family today? And what do you see this as a political role, or do you see that you have some kind of a responsibility vis-à-vis the country and vis-à-vis Europe? How do you consider this situation?
Well, I think that as an entrepreneur, you have responsibilities in trying to do well and operate well in what you have to do. And I think that there is an effect, and a positive effect, if you end up doing that. And so that's where I would try and spend most of my efforts. And then, as a family, what we do is we basically support a lot of educational projects, and we think that, and they're really linked to our city, region, and country, and we ultimately think that more people are well trained and more we can enable them to do great things, the better. So that's really the way we try and contribute.